So, do you guys remember that story that I shared about that one clown on Twitter who was accusing me of looking like the kind of person who would abuse people's trust? I decided to think for a little while about the things that I can say make me not abuse people's trust. At the same time, create an official topic about that because I feel like trust is something that doesn't get discussed as often as it should, and it's something that I believe a lot of people should value. And I also think that in modern days, it's very difficult to come across people who you can genuinely say you can blindly trust. And I personally struggle with that one a lot. Even the people who I thought I could trust, especially with like intimate details and stuff, what do I find out? The motherfucker talked about it to someone they were not authorized to talk to about it with. I am going to share the list that I created because I wanted to have a structure when making this video. So I didn't want to just be like, oh, I'm gonna go about it off the top of my head because I don't want it to just take very long, but also I wanted to be able to not forget any of the points that I came up with. And this is not an all-inclusive list, but it's immediately the stuff that came to mind as legit examples that I can say in recent memory that make me feel like is a piece of evidence as to how I don't abuse people's trust. And if you guys relate to any of these, please let me know, and let me know if it's something you consider that is something default that people do, that you think you can blindly trust people with this, or if you believe that these things are things that legitimately mean only someone who's trusted could do that. The first thing I can think of is driving stupid because it's someone else's car. So, over the course of the past 2 years or so, I have had instances in which I have had a car loaned to me, particularly at Toyota. And it's usually when my service is taking too long or is being really expensive. They tend to hook you up if they have some loaner cars available on the fleet. And I always told myself, I'm going to drive better than I drive my own car, because if I were to do something to this one, it's going to bring me real problems. And I feel like the best way to deal with problems is to avoid them from happening. And my concern is something like, what would happen with my insurance? How much would this cost me? Because it's something that I have never gone through, and it's something that I wouldn't know how to estimate what kind of damage that would incur. I'm like, how about if I drive this like it's more precious than my actual personal everyday car? In addition to that, I can say that the actual people in my personal life who have loaned me their personal cars, same principle applies. I do not speed when I'm driving by myself or someone else's car, especially. I will drive even more delicately than usual because it's not my car, and therefore I'm not used to how that car reacts to things like acceleration, braking, steering. I will want to be even more careful and respectful than I am with my personal everyday car, which I'm comfortable with and I know how it reacts under any circumstance pretty much. I just don't feel as safe when I'm driving someone else's car. And I also feel it. It's like, man, this is just not my car. It's not mine. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't have my scent in it. It doesn't have my print on it. Is the best way I can describe it. My customizations are not present in this car. And another thing I like to do is, no matter what happens, I will refuel it if there is a difference, a significant difference between how much gas it was loaned to me with versus how much gas I'm returning it with. If it makes it to at least a quarter of a tank, you can expect for me to refuel it. And if I notice that your car is at less than half a tank and I'm borrowing it, and even if I go only 5 miles away with it, I'm still gonna refuel it for you. Because the way I look at it is, I want to return something in better condition than someone loaned it to me, because I would like for you to feel confident and even have a degree of incentive to be like, you know what? I remember when I loaned something to Zam and she returned it to me much better than I gave it to her. So hell yeah, I'm eager for her to borrow something from me. And I don't know about you guys, but that's the way that I was raised. And I think that that is incredibly important because I'm the same. If I'm going to be borrowing someone else's car, of course I will want to treat it better because this is someone doing me a favor. And why wouldn't I place care and value onto that? Another thing I can say I don't abuse is when someone entrusts me with a password. If you give me your password for something, of course, I'm not going to share it with anybody else. But also, just because I have access to something doesn't mean that I'm going to start browsing. And I can think of two things I did this with. A phone that I borrowed before I had a smartphone way back in the day, and a computer that I borrowed a couple times. Same reasons. When my computer was broken and I borrowed this one, I had access to these devices, but just because I had access to those devices did not mean that I started peeking through their social media. I did not look into their files. I did not look through their emails. I didn't do any of that because if it were me, I wouldn't want somebody to be prying over my personal stuff. And on top of that, I look at that as mail. It would be illegal to intercept someone's mail and open it and read it and examine it as if it were your own. So why would that not translate into a digital form? And on top of that, it just makes me uncomfortable to be exploring documents that don't belong to me. If I wanted to do that, how about if I become one of those people who like investigates people who disappear or something, and then you gotta peruse through their digital trail, digital evidence, or paper things like personal journals and things? I would be an investigator, but I'm not. So if I am not, I don't feel like I have the authority or authorization to do that. And even if it were a child of mine or a husband or a boyfriend, I don't do that. I'm not curious like that. I don't care. It's not my business. I'm not dying to know. And the worst part is that I have known people who will do that. If they have access to something like a key to a box of someone's personal stuff, they'll peruse it and in some cases even destroy or discard some belongings. And when I heard of someone having that done to them, I said to myself, that feels like such a violation of your intimacy. And if someone were to do that to me, I don't think I could be as benevolent as this person was. And it's a shame that it happened so close to me. And I'm telling myself, you know what? Just because this happened close to me doesn't mean that I'm ever gonna do something like that. I don't care how bad my situation is, even if I needed to find evidence to send someone to hell or something. If I'm meant to find something out, it's going to find me. I am a firm believer that I don't have to be doing dirty work to obtain something. Stuff like that just aligns itself in your path. And you don't have to artificially induce anything to happen. Another thing is when I'm out with someone and they say, do you need anything? Do you want anything? Or if we're out shopping together and they go, if you see something that you want, just get it. I'm like, what if we're at Walmart and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, these $200 freaking headphones or something. Sure, I'm gonna grab that. I wouldn't abuse someone's trust like that. Another thing, now that I think about it, that someone has done with me is someone has handed me their literal credit card. We come up with a plan of what we need, like say we're going to buy some fruits and veggies and some kind of meat, and that's it. And then someone is like, all right, dropping me off at the store. That's what I stick to. You give me a list, exactly gram by gram, that's on that list. That's what we're getting. Even if you were to tell me something like, oh, if you see something else that you want, just go ahead and take it. Say my grandparents, when I was a kid, same thing. They would do that with me. They would give me like $20 back when $20 was worth something. And let's say that what I'm picking up was actually $10. That remaining 10, I could buy something within that range, of course. I never did. Never would. I never had that craving or desire to do such a thing. Same thing with credit cards. Because that's money that's not tangible, it makes it even scarier to me. So I'm like, if I wouldn't buy this stuff with my own money because I don't have it, why would it be okay to do it with somebody else's card, even if they're inviting me to do so? It just doesn't feel right. And on top of that, just because it's something that someone is encouraging me to do, I'm not going to just start grabbing random shit and take advantage of that, because it's just not right. I don't feel right doing it. If with my own personal means, I haven't been able to obtain something, I like to think of it as now is not the time for me to have something. So if someone is going to make me have something, I want for them to be the ones getting it, to then hand it to me and present it to me as, here you go. I heard that you needed, I don't know, a new pair of shoes. Here they are. As opposed to you just inviting me to just go out shopping for this, but you're not present during the event. So yeah, that's just something that I cannot do. Again, it just doesn't feel right. And I'm a very sensitive person when it comes to that stuff. Like there's just stuff that I feel with my gut, and when my gut feels tense and all that, I just cannot act upon anything. When someone lets me borrow a phone or computer, I don't browse. I pretty much went over that one when it comes to the shared password stuff, but again, that's just not something that I do, and that's something that I have never done. And I can tie that one as well with when someone has letters or papers on top of their counters or tables, I don't pry, no matter how visible it is. I have been to people's homes where they have bills and all kinds of letters just on top of counters, very visible, very out in the open. I never go around like moving papers around and shuffling things around and going like, oh, so I see that you have this as your car insurance. Nothing like that. That is extremely personal. That's not my business. Why would I look at it? I have been on the receiving end of that, and that shit pisses me off. That I may have had like a little piece of paper just randomly lying on top of a counter, and there was this nosy ass goddamn person sticking their hands on my belongings. That shit was so disrespectful. It doesn't matter who you are. That's not something that I do to you. That's not something that I have invited you to do. Don't do that. By default, you should not be curious about that type of shit. It's personal. Would you let me examine your bank account status? Like all of your bank accounts? Would you do that? No, right? So what makes you think that other kinds of correspondence is okay for you to look at? And you might say, well, if you're really that concerned about someone looking at that, why would you have it out in the open? Because it is possible for you to have things out in the open and for me to not examine them so nosily. So if I can prove that that's something doable, which is to not look at that shit, I expect you to be able to do the same. That's the point. The point is that no matter what's in front of your face, if you understand that it's something that's not your business, you stay the fuck away from it. And that's the whole reason why I cannot be adding people in my personal social media. I know that some of you people are going to be nosy about some stuff. And I wouldn't invite you to look at that. There's some stuff that you just don't have the privilege of having access to. So you might say, oh, well, that's why you control what people can see or what people cannot see. And I'm like, damn right. Like, my social media tends to look like I haven't updated it since 2018, but it definitely has had updates. I just make them invisible. When someone leaves me with a bag or something to watch over, I don't glance over it. And what I mean by that is if someone leaves me with a backpack or a shopping bag or a wallet or a purse or something like that, you will never catch me digging into it, trying to find out what the fuck is in there. I don't care. I just don't. Especially with shopping bags. I have had shopping bags just sitting on a counter for a few seconds, and then I'll be seeing some clown like peeking into it. If you were not the person ringing me up, if you were not the person shopping with me, you missed out on that information. Too bad. Resist the urge to be nosy. I have never in my life dug through someone's stuff. When I ride someone else's car, I'm not noticing any personal belongings they may have. Even if I'm on my own mother's car, I'm not going to be like looking around, seeing what she has or what she doesn't have, anything like that. I have not been invited to look at that stuff. Why would I? And sometimes when someone says, oh, I have something in my car, would you mind getting it for me? Let's say that someone is asking me to go get the registration or something, which has happened before. I'm like, do you know exactly which drawer I need to look into? Because even though I'm technically welcome to browse, I want to go directly to where the matter is. And I also want to not invade too much of that space. I don't want to be looking in the glove box when it's actually on another compartment. I want to be able to go straight to it, find it, pull it out, and be on my way. When I stay at someone else's place, I don't waste water, electricity, nor eat food uninvited. That's another thing. You guys have no idea the number of times I have actually gone hungry, waiting to be invited into eating something. Another thing is I like to take long showers and I leave the water running. I used to not always do that, but in more recent times, it serves as a therapeutic thing for me to do. When I'm at someone else's house, I try to shower as quick as possible, limit how long the water is running for, and I will definitely not do my usual skincare routine. I will definitely cut it in half. And that's because I'm telling myself if I had someone over at my place, I wouldn't want for them to abuse my utilities. So why would I do that? I don't leave any lights on overnight. I don't leave anything plugged. I don't leave any TVs on. I don't leave lights on when I'm exiting out of a room. Bullshit like that. When I go out to dine, I don't order as if my budget is unlimited all of a sudden. So when I have been out on dates, if I'm not going to be the one paying and I know that it's someone taking me out on a date, I'll be like, would it be okay if we order this appetizer? Would it be okay if we go to this particular place? It's a little bit on the expensive side, but we can split it if we have to, or maybe we don't have to go this month. Maybe we can go another month. I have done that shit because I actually care and I'm actually considerate. And if it were me, I would want somebody to not abuse my trust. Well, there you guys have it. That is my list of things that I could think of that demonstrate that I don't abuse people's trust. If you don't believe me when I say that's the way that I am, I don't care because I actually have people in real life who can vouch for everything that I'm saying. But that's not the point. Why would I come here and lie about things like that? The whole reason I'm sharing this is because that clown inspired that topic, but also I like to see what people value. What is it that makes you feel respected? What is it that makes you trust somebody? And I think that these are examples that can demonstrate the little things that can hint at someone being trustworthy. And this is something that I just like to do. It feels right, and I also feel like it helps me remain more humble. But yeah, if you guys do your own stuff that you feel is an indication of being respectful and trustworthy, let me know, because I'm pretty sure that I'm forgetting some stuff. And I'm sure that one of you is probably going to say something that's going to make me be like, oh my God, I forgot to say that. OMG, yes. Share with me.